Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Tomes and Tunes. This is episode 28. What started as a whim back in the spring has been going on strong for 28 weeks of talking with songwriters about our other favorite subject, which is books, of course. I mean, what else? This week, I am so happy to bring on my guest, Ann Stott. And P.S., I forgot to mention, I am Arielle Silver, your friendly host. So Ann Stott is a songwriter and an actor who lives in Provincetown, Massachusetts, but she's not from there. She had this fantasy of spending a little bit of time there. I don't know how many years ago, and at some point just moved from New York City up to the very tip of Cape Cod, and that's where she stayed for the time being anyway. And here I am in Los Angeles. Let's bring Ann on and see how she's doing. Hi, Ann.
Hi, Arielle. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here, especially because I was your first Tomes and Tunes, right? This was in the spring, right?
And you were the very first guest on this show on Thursdays at this time, but it wasn't the name Tomes and Tunes was developed while we were
In the
on the
show.
show.
Yeah, because you were in front of your bookcase and I was in front of my bookcase.
Uh-huh.
And then Harriet came up with the name, right? Our friend
We just
Harriet.
exactly. We just started talking about books because that was like a favorite topic of both of ours. And Harriet was watching and she just popped it in the comments. This was back on Instagram, and she popped it in the comments, and I was just like, "What? Tomes and Tunes? That's brilliant!" But for the first 3 or 4 weeks, I kept saying, uh, what would Tomes and Tombs. I kept saying the name wrong for the first few weeks because I was just tongue tied. But yeah, I'm so happy to have you back now officially on Tomes and Tunes.
I'm so happy to be back, but it's funny because neither of us are in front of our bookcases because we've gotten fancy with our live streaming, right? We have to be near our computers.
We are very fancy, yeah.
You're the trailblazer with the fancy with the banner down below and the StreamYard. You're blazing a fancy trail, Arielle.
This is very fancy. Here I am wearing like 3 shirts and a scarf and yoga pants. It
In our
doesn't get fancier than
uninsulated
this.
shed.
It's so funny. But yeah, you're right. I was back then I was in the living room of my house right in front of the bookcase. And where is your bookcase? Is it in the room that you're in right now, or is it somewhere else in the house?
No, it's down a flight of stairs, and I was down there because it's much closer to the Wi-Fi source.
Oh, that's right.
And Instagram is so shaky with the live streaming that I wanted to be as close as possible to the Wi-Fi. So I set up in front of the bookcase, and then we were both in front of bookcases. But now to do StreamYard, I have to be near the computer. So
Yeah.
there isn't a there are shelves behind the computer, but they don't have books. They have stuff. They're
Ooh,
stuffed
very
shelves rather than
intriguing.
bookshelves. Well, there's a
Intriguing.
lot of good music over there, and then there are old journals and scripts from plays I've been in, and it's a little I guess archive of my creative life behind the computer.
So the journals that you have not burned are on that shelf, and is that the sort of waiting area? Like these journals might be on their way out. We don't know. We're still assessing.
No,
Hi,
no,
Rob,
no,
by
it's
the
a
way.
very clear line. So Arielle and I have this ongoing thing about burning or saving journals. So the journals that are just personal, like literally vomiting out my emotional mess, they get burned. The notebooks that have my writing in them, where I write
Oh,
songs,
that's right.
they get saved. And actually, I keep a bunch of them on my desk. They're right here, a bunch
yeah.
of them, and then there are more older ones over there. But they never get burned. They'll be saved. But and then if something good comes out of the vomiting my emotional mess onto the page thing, I transfer it over to a notebook so it doesn't get lost.
I think I thought that this whole thing with you and me about journals and burning and all that stuff, I thought it was a conversation about what we let go of or what we want to erase of our past. But I'm starting to realize it's more about organization, and you are way more organized in that you transfer ideas, whereas I put like all of that stuff like just in the same journals. Like my journals are filled. There'll be 50 pages of emotional wreck, and then like a song, and then emotional wreck, and then a song, and I have to kind of wade through and relive those experiences in order to get to the lyrics.
And I've often questioned this thing of having two separate journals and what would happen to my songwriting if I just put it all in one place. But I do think I keep my eye out for like what might work. And there's plenty of emotional wreck in the songwriting journals, notebooks too. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a clear line between the two, but that's kind of the way I've always done it. But sometimes I thought maybe I should. But I do a lot of free form writing in the notebook too. It's not like I go into the notebook and I only like write songs. I do go in and sort of free associate and see whatever comes up. But yeah, now you're making me question myself. But there is also the catharsis element, which is burning the journals is so satisfying, like so deeply satisfying, which is not your experience. We all get to be different about these things.
I'm pulling some journals off my shelf because I was trying to find the one. I came up with a different system a year or two ago that I have not exactly been adhering to, or I'm still playing around with it, I guess. It's sort of like, it's the creative process. It's like you come up with the idea and you test it out for a while, and then you bring it back to the drawing board and you refine it. So that's what I was doing with my actual journaling a year or two ago, where I would have a journal and, just write, the way that you would write in a journal. But then when I had song lyrics, I would flip it over and turn it upside down and then write my song lyrics the other way. Then I realized that I didn't have to flip it upside down. I could just, start at the back and just, and so I actually really like that system, because now when I go back to those journals, I can find all the songs that I was working on in that particular journal, all starting from the back. I got to go back to that, that process. It was really good.
But I see that you do the tabs, and I've started doing the tabs. Do you have tabs?
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of tabs. Yeah, I use Post-it notes.
Because I, I write a lot of crap, right? Like there's a lot of writing that will never see the light of day for good reason. And so then when I do tab like the latest iteration of something that I like, or like, something that I know is an idea that I'm going to want to go back to or whatever. I do that so that I can get back to it, because even without blurting out the emotional mess, there's so much crap in each journal. I mean, just so much stuff no one should ever hear.
I just want to acknowledge that in the chat box here we have Justine and Harriet and Rob, who are part of our mutual crew. And Justine, I love so you can avoid reliving the emotional turmoil. Like like it's really fun to like see the comments happening while we're talking about the journaling. So yeah, hi guys, nice to have you guys here.
Even
yeah,
if
you click
the
the
there we go.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the comments. Hey, everybody. Now I can see you. Woohoo!
Oh, and hi, Joseph Darusha. I used to play in a band with him, a kirtan band with Joseph. He is a multi-instrumentalist woodwind player. Joseph, nice to see you. Susan, oh my gosh, everybody,
Susan.
hi. If you're here, say hi. It's so fun to see you. Well, I love that we were just talking all about journals, because it's also interesting. We've talked about journals actually a lot, you and I. And I started journaling when I was really young, and you came to journaling older. And so we initially approached journaling differently, because for me it was, an 8-year-old's or 9-year-old's version of how to write in a journal. And for you, it was an adult version, right?
Yeah, so we've talked about this. I wasn't writing songs as a teenager or an early adult, And when people would suggest journaling as a thing to do for your mental health or whatever, I would like look at the page and I just felt completely stuck. Like there was just a chasm between me and this blank page, and I couldn't bridge the distance. And then a really good friend of mine, I was living in New York then, one of my closest friends moved to Seattle, and we were young and living on very strict budgets, and this was before cell phones. This was the early 90s. And so we knew that we weren't, I mean, we talked all the time in New York, but we weren't going to be able to afford the long distance phone bills. And which just isn't a thing anymore, which is so funny to think about, right?
How many friendships and relationships were broken up because of long distance phone bills?
Totally.
And how many kids got in trouble for lingering on the phone way too long with their long distance whatever, and their parents were like, you racked up the $50 whatever.
Totally.
Kids these days have it so easy. Anyway, go on.
So easy. They have no idea. So we decided to write each other. This is my friend Soya and I. And because I was writing to her, I could write what I really felt because I told her the things I really felt. And she like opened the door to journaling for me. And then but I still didn't start writing songs again for like, again, I never had, for like maybe 7 more years. But then when I decided to start writing songs, I just started writing. And that was, not that the writing was great at first or whatever, but like I didn't have a barrier at that point. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, I can't do this. It was just like, I'm doing this, period.
Yeah.
But that was how the journaling started, through letter writing.
I really love that. My songwriting also started it felt really organic. It just came. It wasn't ever that I was going to sit down and write a song. And I think that's a interesting way to start as a songwriter. I feel like that's like there are three types of writers. There's the writer who's doing it almost as expressive therapy, expressive writing in that way. There's the writer who's coming to it as an art form, and there's a writer who's coming to it from a craft perspective. And I don't think these are things that remain separate, but I just think that they're kind of like the entry point, I guess is, how you start it. Maybe. I don't know. I'm making up this theory right here on the fly, but
That's exciting.
But I do feel like because I have a friend, a songwriting friend, who very much decided that she wanted to be a songwriter, and so started studying the craft of songwriting, and that was her entry into being a songwriter. Whereas for me, I had started writing songs long before I even understood there was any kind of craft that went along with being a writer. It was just, I just was singing. I actually, I remember, I wrote some songs in high school before I ever played guitar, but in college I started guitar. And I remember I went out to a dance club one night, and on the way home, I was driving my car, and it was raining. I remember the windshield wipers, the rhythm of the wipers against the rain. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. And I was wearing a silver shirt and black jeans. I'm sure I looked super hot. And and I was feeling really alone. Really, really alone, and like, who am I, and what is this life, and why am I here? And lonely, but like the bigger, I'm gonna sing a song later about an existential crisis, and it was sort of this feeling that I had back then driving the car that night, like just alone in a really existential way, not just because I was not with anybody at the moment. And that, I think, was kind of the first time I was in college. I got back to my dorm, I picked up my guitar, and I was like, writing about my silver shirt and my black pants and the windshield wipers and the rhythm, and it was like kind of the first time that I was consciously writing a song.
Oh, that's such a cool story.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wish now I wish now I'd worked up the first song I wrote that I recorded or shared with people. It would have been fun to sing those songs. That's a great story. It wasn't quite that organic for me. I just want to say first of all that Gwen's in the house too, and
Hey,
she
Gwen.
started her journaling with a letter a day project also. So that's so cool.
I love
Um,
that. And also, I
um,
want to say hi to Chris Fletcher. Hi, Chris. See you. Thanks for stopping by.
but it is interesting to me when I go back. So I didn't make any music for about 9 years. And then I realized I wanted to sing again. And when I started singing, it was just understood that I was going to be writing songs too. Like there was just no, it wasn't like, should I, shouldn't I don't know. What do you think? It was like, no, I'm writing. And, which is pretty bold for me considering like sort of my own internal barriers at the time. But it wasn't as poetic a writing beginning as that. That's a great first song story.
I think if it's a great story, it's is probably way better than the song itself. However, I never burn my journals, and so I am sure that if we had the time, I could find that song in one of these journals in this on the shelf right next to me right now. The whole
Very
past
cool.
is glaring down, bearing down on me.
I find that comforting though. Like I have over 2 years worth of writing sitting right here on my desk, and I like having it there. Like it comforts me,
Yeah.
and it feels like
Hmm.
first of all, at any given moment, if I'm not into what I'm writing or I feel stuck, I can like open one and pick something out and try that for a while, try that idea for a while. But also, it's just like having the tactile evidence of what I've been doing around me or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's something comforting about having them right here. I have never talked about that with anybody before, and it's interesting that you're bringing that up. Harriet, I just wanted to um, I just realized I could put some of these comments up. There's such a great conversation going on in the comment box that Gwen, I'm going to share yours as well. Um, the Letter a Day project. I love this
So cool.
impromptu um, conversation about, yeah, Rob, you love the journaling shop talk. It's so fun, right? Um, so thanks. Love all the comments from everybody. Yeah, there's
Sometimes
something
I
comforting
wonder
about
because
this.
I I love talking about creativity and the process of creation almost as much as creating. Like it's a pretty close call some days. Like how much I get out of talking about my process, hearing about other people's processes. It's like food for my soul. I love it so much.
Um, and that is a really great segue. It would have been a really great segue if we were going into me reading my excerpt from the book that I want to share today. However, we're going to go to you first, but that was a great segue to the book talk portion of the programming.
But it's kind of a good segue to what I'm going to read too.
Ooh, good. Oh
I'm
wait, I
really
want to
excited.
share. Let's see
Actually.
what Justine says. I just covered up our faces so we can. Justine, I started writing in bound journals when I was in first year architecture. Before that time, it was letters or loose leaf pages. I love having things bound into an era in my life. Yes, I agree with that. I've split up my thoughts and interests into different journals over the years, but I actually dislike the fact that the chronology of my passions have been disrupted by this division. Justine, I am right there with you. I tried for a while to separate, as Anne does. I tried to separate my lyrics from my journaling. I attempted that. In fact, I have some journals on this wall that are specifically labeled lyrics or otherwise, but it didn't work for me. But I love that it works for you, Anne. That's so. It's like it's like everybody has their own thing, huh?
Yeah, but it's an interesting question. Like, if I'm sort of separating out some layer of like raw emotional experience that maybe should be integrated with the songwriting process. But then I couldn't burn them because the lyrics would be interspersed with the journals. But if I did the way you're talking about, like from the front and from the back,
Oh, you could rip it off
pull
and
out the
burn
stuff.
half of it.
I could rip it off and burn half of it. The burning is so cathartic for me.
gosh.
Like, it really, like,
So interesting.
it's a release of whatever has weighed me down, whatever. In fact, it's my birthday on Sunday, and I'm talking about, we have a fire pit in the backyard now, and I'm talking about maybe doing a fire, and I have a pack of journals, and that would be a good, it's my 50th birthday on Sunday. So Arielle's afraid.
I just want to put this out there. I said this to my friend Nina Shimashko a number of years ago, maybe 10 years ago. She was going to burn her journals. And I said, Nina, please do not burn your journals. If you need a place to store them, bring them over or I'll come pick them up. I won't look at them. I'll just store them in my garage. When you're ready for them, they're here. And she didn't take me up on that offer, but she didn't burn them. And a couple of years ago, she wrote to me and she said, thank you so much for not letting me burn those. These are, So I just want to put it out there for anybody, including you, Anne. If you just need them out of your life, but you don't know what to do with them, I have the utmost respect for journals. I believe that nobody should read them. I will not read them. They are not mine. I get it. It's like monsters are in those things. I totally get it. But I will store them for those monsters for you. Because maybe they're just like, Cookie Monster. Maybe they're fuzzy and blue.
Hustle for you, Arielle. That's a side hustle for you. Trusting journal storage space with Arielle Silver.
I love that.
I will tell you that I have never looked back from any of my
And I
journal
love that.
destruction experiences. Like never, like I have, even in this conversation, I have no moment of like, maybe I should have kept that. Like,
And you're like, nope, good riddance.
Nope. Yep. So.
Well, I have to say, I know what I just said about reading journals, but I want to grab this one because this is one that I started. This is volume 1. Even though I had started journaling in elementary school, I don't have any of my elementary, middle, high school journals. This was my sophomore year of college, and I opened this journal up for the first time when I built the shed and brought my journals in here. And it starts out 12:45 a.m., 17 November. Today I have bought, I love the passive whatever. Today I have bought a sketchbook. This will be a sketch of my life until I either finish this book, give up, or start a new one. For now, it will do. And it's like that was my entry point to starting this series of journaling. And I really like to read this now. The first time I opened it, I was like, I don't even recognize this person in here. And it was so beautiful to... this is around the same time that I was wearing the silver shirt and the black jeans and driving home in the rain from the dance club. It's the same right. era. And in fact, that song is probably in here. But there's something about that reminder of who I was that's still part of me somewhere, but no longer the same. That feels...
I totally get that. Like I resonate with what you're saying, and it doesn't touch like what my
doesn't
process
touch it
is. It's really interesting. No, because I'm like, of course, like you would go back, you would have this window into who you were that you've forgotten, and like all this nuance and layer to your emotional experience. Like we sort of crystallize our past into a story or 2 stories, when in fact there are always 10 stories or 20 stories, right? I get all of it, and I'm still probably going to burn some journals on Sunday.
I love it. Take pictures. Post it, or
and
it didn't
Gwen
happen.
has brought up a really good point, which is like deceased parents read their journals, don't read their journals. And I would not, if I came across journals, I would not read them. But my great aunt died, and she had letters. She had bundles of letters. And I did read some of them and discover that she had a letter writing affair. My great aunt never married. And she had an affair via letters with this man, and he was married. And it came to, when she figured out he was married, she stopped writing. But I was very happy I read that. But I wouldn't read private journals that are left. I don't think I would.
That's really the thing about letters, that's an interesting idea because they're intended for an audience, whereas journals are not intended for an audience, and that sort of butts up against what I was saying about expressive writing, expressive therapy, or that very personal writing versus something even just minutely crafted, something that's somewhat of is somewhat talking to an external audience. It's a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We forgot to segue. We were
No,
gonna
I'm
segue.
gonna segue now. Should I segue
Okay.
now?
Yeah, segue.
Well, but no, are you gonna say the Tomes and Tunes part, or should I just segue without even saying that?
It's Tomes
Do
and
people
Tunes.
know the format? It's
Oh,
Tomes
well,
and Tunes.
It's Tomes and
Listen,
Tunes. That's books and talking books and swapping songs. So here we are.
There you go.
Go for it.
So, have you ever read Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen?
I have read all of her books, yeah, but not for a very long time. Not since I was wearing the silver shirt and black jeans and coming home from the dance. The dance club.
It's so. I almost wore a silver shirt today. I really wish I had. I didn't know if it was going to be too much for the camera. So I'm in a little bit of a Jane Austen rabbit hole this week for a variety of reasons that I won't get into because it takes too long to explain. But as I was thinking about what to read today, I was like, well, I should read some Jane Austen because that's what I'm reading. But so her writing is so tight and it's so plot driven. Like, it's not like there's sort of a page of kind of flourishy literature that stands outside of what's happening or whatever. Then I remembered Northanger Abbey, which was her first book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as strong as her other work. You can feel, but what's exciting is that you can feel her trying things, right? And you can feel her sort of pushing and pulling at herself and in her writing. And the novel was a relatively new form when Jane Austen was writing. It hadn't been around forever. And it was kind of considered the chick flick of its time. Like men never read novels. Men read history and philosophy and the Shakespeare sonnets and the epic poems, right? But the novel was kind of sneered at. Well, it was novel, but it was derided as being a lesser form of reading than these other forms. And a lot of women were actually writing novels. The one before Jane Austen who's sort of survived the most is this woman named Anne Radcliffe. And they were writing these like gothic romances where like damsels in distress get caught in Italian villas by themselves in the dark of night and stuff like that. Anyway, in Northanger Abbey, the characters talk about novels. And
they were having a Tomes and Tunes.
They're having a Tomes and Tunes in Northanger Abbey. And then Jane Austen does like a total timeout to like defend the novel in the book. So I thought that's what I would read.
Read her defense, please.
I'll read her defense. So there's just a teeny bit of how she gets into it, which is about her main character and a friend of hers. So, and then she gets into her defense. The progress of the friendship between Catherine and Isabella was quick, as its beginning had been warm, and they passed so rapidly through every gradation of increasing tenderness that there was shortly no fresh proof of it to be given to their friends or themselves. They called each other by their Christian name, were always arm in arm when they walked, pinned up each other's train for the dance, and were not to be divided in the set. And if a rainy morning deprived them of other enjoyments, they were still resolute in meeting in defiance of wet and dirt, and shut themselves up to read novels together. Yes, novels. For I will not adopt that ungenerous and impolitic custom so common with novel writers of degrading by their contemptuous censure the very performances to the number of which they are themselves adding, joining with their greatest enemies in bestowing the harshest epithets on such works, and scarcely ever permitting them to be read by their own heroine, who, if she accidentally take up a novel, is sure to turn over its insipid pages with disgust. Alas, if the heroine of one novel be not patronized by the heroine of another, from whom can she expect protection and regard? I cannot approve of it. Let us leave it to the reviewers to abuse such effusions of fancy at their leisure, and over every new novel to talk in threadbare strains of the trash with which the press now groans. Let us not desert one another. We are an injured body. Although our productions have afforded more extensive and unaffected pleasure than those of any other literary corporation in the world, no species of composition has been so much decried. From pride, ignorance, or fashion, our foes are almost as many as our readers, and while the of the 900th abridger of the history of England, or of the man who collects and publishes in a volume some dozen lines of Milton, Pope, and Prior, with a paper from the Spectator and a chapter from Sterne, are eulogized by 1,000 pens, there seems almost a general wish of decrying the capacity and undervaluing the labor of the novelist, and of citing the performances which have only genius, wit, and taste to recommend them. I am no novel reader. I seldom look into novels. Do not imagine that I often read novels. It is rarely very well for a novel. Such is the common chant. And what are you reading, Miss So-and-so? Oh, it is only a novel, replies the young lady, while she lays down her book with a indifference or momentary shame. It is only Cecilia or Camilla or Belinda, or in short, only some work in which the greatest powers of the mind are displayed, in which the most thorough knowledge of human nature, the happiest delineation of its varieties, the liveliest effusion of wit and humor are conveyed to the world in the best chosen language. Mic drop from Jane Austen.
Good for her.
I know, she was like, I'm not having it.
Yeah.
And by the way, there were novels called Camilla, Belinda, and whatever. I thought she was making that up at first, but there's a note and it says those were actual novels then.
Huh.
Probably not as good as even Northanger Abbey, but they were indeed novels.
I love that passage, and it's so fitting, of course, for this show. So thank you for bringing that in. It's fascinating when, yes, embedded in the art is a discussion of the art. It's very meta.
Very meta, and the conversation goes on between the characters, between the heroine and the love interest, who's a man who actually admits that he likes novels, which is unusual. So then they talk about novels, and then she's even more meta because there were all these gothic romances being written, which is so not her style ultimately, but she sort of tries it out for like 30 pages. Like our heroine ends up in a house that she thinks might be haunted, and you know, and I'm like, oh look, Jane Austen's trying a little gothic romance here.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess Jane Austen trying a gothic romance made me think of this, but last night I watched, for the first time in decades, Little Shop of Horrors, the musical.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it?
You know, I've seen the play, and I don't know if I've ever watched the movie.
Okay,
although I
so
worked
you've
with
seen
Ellen Green once, so I kind of want to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've seen the play, so I wonder...
but a long time ago.
A local high school here did the play a couple of years ago, and I did see that, and I was really confused about the ending, because the ending of the play was the complete opposite of the ending of the movie as I remembered it. But last night I watched the director's cut of the film, and apparently they'd filmed two different endings completely opposite from each other. And
Wow.
the second ending, which I saw last night, was incredibly elaborate. And just now when you said that Jane Austen was trying out the gothic novel, it reminded me of this, how it's like, let's try this and let's try that other thing, and I don't know, let's see what sticks, what feels authentic, really. But yeah.
It's so reassuring, isn't it? Like Persuasion by Jane Austen. She made a choice about which end she wanted, but she had another ending. And in the version I have, in the notes at the end, they give you the alternate, the original draft.
I don't know if I am an artist who is enough in control of myself to. This is really interesting, that idea of going down both paths. I don't know that I have. I think I get attacked. I don't know. It's kind of interesting because in songwriting, I will easily write 5 verses for a song and then throw out, 3 of them. I don't have a problem with paring down and clarifying and all that stuff, but
that's the same thing.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I've been working on a memoir for the last 7 years, and rewriting. So I guess it's just a rewriting process, but there's something about a different ending, an alternate ending to the story that, unlike memoir where you can choose which part of the story you're going to tell in order to close up the book, a novel is completely fabricated in your mind. It's imagined, and I don't know that I have so much control over my craft as a writer to actually venture down an alternate path with my characters from what I originally wrote. So
I still all the time, and you're just not giving yourself credit for it. But I will say with this, the what didn't change, it was the how. So everything ended up the same. It was just how they found their way to each other, because it's Jane Austen, right? So happy ending couple gets together. Jane Austen isn't gonna. Maybe if she lived past 42, we would have had a different kind of novel from her. But
oh my gosh,
so it wasn't like, oh hey Charmin. It wasn't that the end changed. It was just how they got there. But it was pretty significantly different, like in terms of plot choices, and apparently she felt like the original choice was a little too abrupt. She wanted to feel it out in a different way. But I think you do it all the time, and you're just not giving yourself credit for it.
I do what? Go down both paths?
Yeah, write things and reject them, change, focus, follow the work to some new place.
Yeah, I guess there are different points in the creative process at which it could happen and it would be okay. I feel like, yes, you're right. And then, but beyond a certain point, when I think of ending, I think you get to the end. And then to scroll back in time, like this Little Shop of Horrors, the original movie, I think possibly only the dentist dies, or maybe the flower shop owner as well. I'm not sure about that second one. But in the second version, everybody dies.
Wow.
And it's pretty, and to me, the interesting part is how you get there. So I hope I didn't just completely, I should have said spoiler alert. But it's, but that's like to scroll back to a point and say, oh, it's at this point that I'm making a decision. We're going to go down that path and everybody's going to live, or we're going to go down that path and everybody's going to die. But that's interesting for what you just said about how it was the how. It wasn't the what happened, but it was just the how it got there.
Right. So what are you reading?
How about I love Jeanette Winterson. Although I have not read all of her books, in fact, not even close, because she's quite prolific. And at some point in time, I wasn't as connected with her style. But I still love her. I still consider my collection of her books are like, when I have given all of my books away, this is part of why I won't burn journals, because I completely regret giving books away.
Oh, God. Oh,
But when I moved
absolutely.
across the country, I gave away all my books except for my Jeanette Winterson books and a couple others.
That
So
says
today I
so
found,
much, Arielle.
does it?
It does.
So today, for some reason, I was drawn to look at that collection of her books, and this is one called Art. Well, two different pronunciations. It's called Objects, or it could be called Art Objects, and
Right.
she kind of moves between those two ideas throughout the book. It is essays. It's essays on art and well, yeah, it's essaying for sure. It's essays. It's not a novel. Um, and so today when I picked it up, I think I might reread it, but I just opened up some of my dog ears, and was browsing through them. So I'll just start here. We hear a lot about the arrogance of the artist, but nothing about the arrogance of the audience. The audience, who have not done the work, who have not taken any risks, whose life and livelihood are not bound up at every moment with what they are making, who have given no thought to the medium or the method, who glance up, flick through, chatter over the opening chords, then snap their fingers and walk away like some monstrous Roman tyrant. This is not arrogance. Of course, they can absorb in a few moments and without any effort the sum of the artist and the art. And then I'm going to skip a few sentences and go to this. It is right to trust our feelings, but right to test them too. If they are what we say they are, they will stand the test. If not, we will at least be less insincere. But here we come back to the first hurdle of art, and it is a high one. It shows us up. When you say this work has nothing to do with me, when you say this work has nothing to do with me, when you say this work is boring, pointless, silly, obscure, elitist, etc., you might be right because you are looking at a fad, or you might be wrong because the work falls so outside of the safety of your own experience that in order to keep your own world intact, you must deny the other world of the painting. This denial of imaginative experience happens at a deeper level than our affirmation of our daily world. Every day, in countless ways, you and I convince ourselves about ourselves. True art, when it happens to us, challenges the I that we are. I think I'll leave it at that. She starts talking about love, which is one thing I love about her. So she always goes back to love, but there's that.
Oh, that was great. That was great.
I think that was the first when I read that, going back to the time of the silver shirt and the black jeans. I think that was very probably the very first time I had ever encountered the concept of all the things that she talks in there, really, like the role of the, not just the artist, but the role of the audience and the, our feelings as helpful, perhaps, or deceitful, our resistance to new ideas, our willingness, our conscious, the necessity of consciousness as we're engaging with things that we feel resistant toward. It's coming up against something in us, and so can we explore what that is about, and maybe are we holding on to a false narrative or a worldview that doesn't work. It was definitely the first time that I had come up with, I think very definitely that was probably the first time I came up against those ideas.
I think very definitely, probably. Yeah, but we both went meta, so that's interesting without knowing it.
We bring out the meta in each other.
Yeah, we do, Arielle. It's true. It's true. One Aquarius to a Scorpio. Well, Aquarians always bring out the meta, but Yeah. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I wasn't really aware of that book, and now I'm interested in it. So that's always fun.
Yeah, I've got to reread it too, so I'm glad that, every week this show sort of forces me to look at what I'm reading and do I have something from my current reading material to share, or should I go back to my bookshelf? And full disclosure, what I'm reading right now is The Hunger Games, and so I thought, oh, this is a good week to go back to my shelf and pull something from the archives.
Hey, however we choose to get through these crazy times is how we choose to get through these crazy times, right?
I don't know why I'm reading complete dystopian work right now, but there's something about it that actually is comforting. I cannot say what.
I can see that.
So now, another segue. Speaking of comforting, music soothes the savage beast. And would you grace us with a song?
I will grace us with a song.
Is this
actually,
a new song, or is this something from your 10-year anniversary celebration album, Pennsylvania?
It's from my 10-year anniversary album celebration, Pennsylvania. This is a song that I hadn't sung in a really long time, and then actually Charmin listened to my album Pennsylvania and told me she liked it, and I was like, oh, I should sing that, and then I sang it at my last live stream, and now I'm having fun singing it. I'm like, oh, maybe I like that song I wrote 10 years ago, which is fun. So this is Ghost Town off
Oh yeah,
off my album Pennsylvania, which came out. I had my New York City album release party 10 years ago, November 16th, so this coming Monday. It said ghost towns are empty, so why do I find I'm looking over my shoulder and reading into signs, worn out storefronts and run-down saloons. Someone still lives here, the question is who? Footsteps they echo from I don't know where. Stone faces on porch fronts just sit and stare. Will I make it out alive? I guess no one ever does. It's a battle to the death to live beyond what was. Song to broken-hearted washers waiting for some unforeseen change to blow through their town, but that stoplight's flashed yellow more years than they count. So I watch the spin cycle and I watch my back for a shootout, a drag race, a posse's attack. Will I make it out alive? I guess no one ever does. It's a battle to the death to live beyond what was. Ooh, oh. Ooh.
so fun. I was over here howling
Oh,
with you, singing
yay!
harmonies.
Cool. We should all howl together.
I like that song too. It is haunting, and that's fitting, and it has some really great imagery.
Thank you. Well, it's all real, which helps. I was in a laundromat in a deserted town, and I freaked out and started writing.
You freaked out and started writing.
The laundromat was really creepy. And it wasn't Provincetown. People always think I wrote that song about Provincetown in the winter.
Yeah.
But Provincetown in the winter is nothing compared to this place I was in.
Where were you?
I'm not going to say.
Okay.
But that's very rare for me. I very rarely have an experience and need to write about it immediately. And I mean, not that I didn't go back and edit and rewrite and all that stuff that I do, but like,
yeah,
a lot of those images were like immediate in front of me, happening. Like one young girl puts in her 4 loads with highlights and miniskirt. Like there was a young girl with highlights and miniskirt. Like it was all there. So
you're like transcribing the moment as it's unfolding because you're there doing your laundry. And
yeah,
you know, this is making me think about all the things that I used to consider such chores, and yet they really were great for helping create. I guess they created a necessary barrier a necessary barrier not against creativity but toward creativity. For example, the laundromat. I haven't been in a laundromat in a really long time, but when I lived in Boston, I never had. Well, there were occasions when I always rented apartments, and there were some times when there was laundry in the basement or something. But a lot of times I was bringing my laundry down to the laundromat and sitting there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, an hour and a half or whatever it was. And it was like, and I would journal the whole time, you know, working on songs or just writing. And the commuting on the train, you know, everywhere, or the bus, I wasn't driving. I was, you know, maybe staring out the window, probably listening to music on my whatever device I would use at that time, and write. And here in Los Angeles, I mean, first of all, I'm not complaining that I have laundry in my house. I'll just make that clear.
Yeah.
I'm not
Very
complaining.
clear. We like the laundry.
Yeah.
Don't take the laundry away.
Right. Nobody listening, like, you know, the counting of the quarters and making sure you have enough for the, you know, that's nothing I miss about that. But, you know, there is something about the fact that there were certain things that took a lot of time, but a lot of the time that it took was just waiting time. I just had to be there on the bus traveling across town, or there at the laundromat waiting for my, you know, my clothes to be done. And I was always writing and journaling during that time. And it's harder, like you have to make a more conscious effort to carve out that time when you're not waiting so much.
It's true. And you're reminding me of one other thing, actually. So Jack Petrozelli produced this album with me, and he's a monster musician and has spent years touring the world. You know, like he toured with Rufus Wainwright, he toured with Joan Osborne, he toured with Patti Smith, and dozens of other people. And we had recorded all the basic tracks, and I felt like he wasn't getting, like, we were talking about what else it needed, and I mean, it sounded good. There was nothing wrong, but like I felt like we weren't on the recording getting like the haunted vibe. Mm. And I turned to him at one moment, like out of nowhere, like I was like, I wrote this song in a laundromat in a deserted town with one stoplight, and the woman who owned the laundromat was mentally ill and like acting out, and the laundromat was all like plywood sided, and I was afraid and freaked out. And he, like, it was like this direct communication. He was like, I know what you're talking about, and the whole song fell into place. Like,
he just turned up the laundromat vibe. And
well, he did, because then he said to me later, because he's toured his whole life, he's clocked like hundreds of hours in laundromats around the world. So he just got it. Like he saw the whole thing in that moment, and the whole the song came into focus, like with that communication about laundromats. So
Yeah, because it's really evocative and he
Yeah.
can relate.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so interesting.
I hadn't thought about that in a long time. That was, fun to think about. What song are you going to play for us?
I'm going to play The Calling about an existential crisis.
I love The Calling.
Thank you.
I love an existential crisis song.
Who doesn't? I mean,
doesn't?
I'm really wondering. See, I thought I was so strange that I would write a song about an existential crisis, and I thought that, ironically, coincidentally, I thought, oh, I'm totally alone in this. Like, no one's gonna relate to this song.
But that's how we feel when we're in our existential angst. But first of all, we're songwriters, right? So sad songs make us happy. Like, that's just... But my first song, which I have to work up now and play for you sometime, is called Rest Stop. And it's about sitting at a rest stop and, like, freaking out about the world. And literally the hook at the end of the chorus is, I don't get it how progress can destruct, how lost I feel at the rest stop. So I'm all for the existential angst song.
You definitely have to pull that song out. I hope nobody's throwing down the gauntlet, though, right now, because I don't know that I could work up that Silver Shirt song.
I want to hear it. I want the Silver Shirt song. And I want it, whatever its title is, I want it to be retitled The Silver Shirt Song.
The Silver Shirt song. Well, that's kind of funny because my last name, that would be the Silver Shirt song. That kind of has like a... Well, then, I mean, it just then starts, you know...
The
now I'm
Silver
thinking
Shirt
merch.
song.
Now we have to
Silver
sell
Shirt
the
song.
like silver lame shirts in the merch store. It was not silver lame. Let me just make it clear. I still remember exactly what that shirt looked like. Okay, so here we go. Freight trains in the distance, you hear that whistle blow. You see it slipping like a serpent. Beneath the sunset glow, and further out, the clouds building up a storm. They're throwing bolts of lightning. They say it's gonna pour. Then someone's calling someone. I can hear the neighbors ring. But no one's calling me. I turned up all the lamps, like a lighthouse at the bay. And tip an empty bottle to another lonely day. And off the porch in the clover, beyond the throw of light, the fireflies are blinking night like 1,000 tiny torches on a broken down marquee. No one's calling me. That train knows where it's going. And if you make it back around, and I'll be sitting in the porch light on the lonely side of town. And closer now, the clouds. It's really gonna pour. It's rumbling with thunder, like the coming of the Lord. And someone's calling someone. Can almost hear that choir sing. No one's calling me. And no one's calling me.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Like it, it's one of those songs that sounds like it has always been. You know what I mean? But you're the one who manifested it. It's so beautiful, Arielle.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. It was not one of those songs that just it was not a situation where I sat down and it just poured out. It wasn't that kind of song. But there was something, it felt to me like a turning of a key and a lock that I wrote the song and I brought it to, I would meet with a group of songwriters every Monday, and I brought it to them that particular week and I played it, and it was a little bit unclear what the song was about. And, they liked it, they gave me some feedback, and something happened in the next week that all of a sudden I was just playing around with it, and it felt like I didn't even know what happened. I didn't know what I did, but all of a sudden it was just like that key turning. And I was like, oh, I think I just expressed something that I've been trying to express for a while now and haven't quite been able to. I think I just got closer to that. It just felt like it worked. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Lovely. Yeah, really beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have had an amazing conversation. This has been so great. Really fun to talk with you about journals and Jane Austen and art
So
objects.
fun to tome and tune with you. So good.
It's a verb now.
It is. We've
There we
tomed,
go.
we've tuned.
And tell us when you have a live stream coming up. Go ahead, because I know you got something.
Yeah, so I have Half Midnight Full Moon, my full moon live stream on Sunday the 29th at 11:30 at night, but it's always there for you if that's Eastern time.
Eastern, yeah.
Eastern,
Because it's a
11:30
very
Eastern.
manageable time here.
West Coast folks have no excuse, but if that's too late for some people, it's there on my page in perpetuity to be enjoyed whenever you wish. I have a bunch of new videos up on my YouTube page.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote a new song this fall called Hey America Stand. And there's a lyric video for that, and it's up on YouTube. And I did a live studio version of a song from my album Pennsylvania that's up, Only Us, and tons of other stuff. And then I'm probably going to release another video within the next week or two. So subscribe to my YouTube page if you want to see what's coming next. And you can also head over to my music page on Facebook and follow there and get all the updates.
There we go. Cool. Thank you so much,
Cool.
Anne. I will talk to you soon, and you stay right there, but I'm going to say goodbye to all y'all. This was week 28. That blows my mind. Next week, as it happens, would be week 29. And I have special guest Louis Oliart, and the reason I'm looking at his name so carefully is because he and I literally just met. I'm super excited to talk with him and find out he's kind of bluesy, and I think he's based here in California, but really we don't know each other very well at all. Polar opposite of today with Anne, so it's going to be really fun. I'm loving this show, how it's been an opportunity both to connect with songwriter friends and to make new ones, and all of us love books, so you should see the conversations behind the scenes too. I talked with a songwriter a couple days ago, and he was like, I don't think I can be on your show right now because I haven't read anything in a long time, but P.S., what do you recommend? And we just started talking about books, and so that's been really fun. So next week, tune in, same time, same place. You can find all the archives at my website under shows or on YouTube, also Facebook, but you gotta like kind of scroll around. And I will be right here tomorrow for my weekly Arielle's Acoustic Happy Hour, playing, what do you think, acoustic music and telling stories and doing a little trivia, because hey, why not? It's fun. Okay, I will see you. Stay safe, take good care, and see you next time.